I'm Paul.
I'm Todd. Game on.
That really is a cool intro.
I dig it.
Me too. It's really funny. I'm an old guy, man, 76 years old, but I can still, let's say, I can appreciate this kind of contemporary retro feel of that thing.
I agree.
I really like it.
And retro, everybody's into retro. There's a little nostalgia culturally these days.
So. Why do you think people like that pixelated, gaming stuff? I don't. Personally, I'm not somebody who likes playing Pong or anything like that. I like it when the graphics are heavy duty and there's a lot of, and they're smooth and they're highly detailed. I mean, I love worlds.
I like both. I like both. I like and appreciate the technology and the super realistic stuff, but there's something heartwarming about the essential blocks and dots and just game mechanics of a Pong or Minecraft, Roblox. I still dig that, that
I can see the Minecraft Roblox thing because it's so much bigger, and I guess I'm sort of playing to our upcoming guest to some degree. There's so much bigger story worlds associated with them. But Pong didn't have a story world, man. It was like whoop,
it did not have a story.
It had nothing. It was like bouncing
just mechanics.
Down to
game mechanics. Game mechanics. But we're gonna talk about story today, right? That is our theme.
We got the best of the best on that one, man. Guy who literally, I'll double check to see if I'm accurate when I say this, but I will say I think he's the guy who created the multiverse. I might be right. I might be right. I know he certainly made it into something, but I'm wondering if he created the idea. I'm going to find that out because if he did, I'm going to literally bow right here.
Right. All right, we'll get his take on that. There's probably like many great ideas. There's probably multiple fathers and mothers, involved. But we'll get
multiple universes involved.
Exactly right.
So where you been the last month?
I just got back from beautiful Asheville, North Carolina, where I got to spend some time with my parents. And now I'm speaking to you from Cincinnati, the Kentucky side of Cincinnati, where I'm going to be at an esports travel conference today.
What does that mean? Like travel teams?
It is half destination marketing organizations or conventions and visitors bureaus, places, cities, municipalities, venues, hotels. So half are host cities or places and half are event organizers. We fall mostly on the event organizer side of things. And so it's mostly matchmaking between people that put on big gaming events, people that want gaming events in their city or venue across the U.S.
So it's
that's what it is. It's been running about 10 years, this conference.
Is it big?
We'll see. I went last year and it was pretty big. I mean, there were hundreds of people there, not thousands, but hundreds of people and some of the larger event organizers. And it's always interesting to see what cities are repeats, who's dipping their toe into the water and just trying to understand this. So, of course, these sort of things have been around for a while when it comes to traditional sports, or other conventions. But now it's happening for gaming and esports.
That's interesting. Well, I'm going to on Sunday. This coming Sunday. I'm leaving for SEAT, and that's Sports Entertainment Alliance and Technology. For those of you who do not know, and it's kind of like that. It occurs to me. I mean, on the one hand, you have the leagues and the teams and so on, but there's a large number of event venues there, like arenas, and also those and stadiums and all those organizations that are like conglomerates that own multiple ones attend also. So it's kind of similar in that regard. There's a lot of the place it takes place, which is
Yes.
so.
Yeah. Well, it's, revolves around fandom and storytelling around these activities, of course, economic development and business. So,
Well,
but
yeah,
today, I know we're going to dig into story.
yeah. So, but what about? I mean, for those of you who haven't figured it out, because I'm sure you haven't, our guest is going to be Jeff Gomez of Starlight Runner Entertainment, and won't tell you any more than that right now. When we have him on, you'll understand why this guy is Uber. That's the best way to put it. And I do not mean rides. I mean, although it'll take you on quite a ride, right through the kind of worlds he is responsible for having created and the concept of worlds that he has too, which is really astounding, world building, which is astounding. So, but until then, what do we got on the agenda? What are you thinking?
I think we should go through a small handful of some memorable games because we're both of a certain age. We've seen gaming progress, like you said, from Pong all the way up to the hyper realistic. So I think we should go back and forth and talk a little bit about some key games that we enjoyed and maybe specifically ones that that touch on storytelling or world building. And I think that'd be a nice little intro before we get
Works
to
for
Jeff.
me. You want to start? I don't know the games that you would think that about, and I have three that are very different and very interesting for you.
All right. I like it. Okay. Well, why don't you go? Go. You go first. You go first.
I'll
If
start
you
with
got.
I'll start with
Well,
my obvious one because the other two
okay.
are less obvious and
Okay.
in their own way more interesting. Obviously, given that I've talked about it every single show we've ever had, is Diablo 4, right? And I look honestly, I was not a Diablo franchise guy. I started playing probably, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 years ago. Again, I'm 76, so I'm in my 60s already when I'm playing Diablo 3, right? And I liked it, but I wasn't particularly expert at it. And the interesting thing I found when it comes to the story around Diablo 4, ultimately, your actions are just gearing up and killing monsters. I mean, that's what you're doing, and killing them by the bucket loads, or a boss fight where you will kill one, but that leads to better gear potentially, right? And and it's weird. It's a combination of gorgeous graphics, a bit of a storyline, and I'll get to what really appeals to me on the story side in a second, and math, because that's what the gearing up is. It's really math, and it's not like you're sitting there figuring about additive and multiplicative and and trying to figure it out, and it's all done in a very pretty looking, and it's not bloody at all, but a very pretty looking package. So, but the interesting thing that keeps me going with Diablo 4, because is that, and this goes to the heart of the story. There's of course the main campaign, and that's a full scale story about Lilith and Sanctuary and the Haradrim coming back to help fight against the takeover of the world by evil demons, and the fight against those evil demons and so on and so forth. And the main campaign is the focal point of the entire game, and thematically, at some level, one runs through every single moment of every advance and evolution of the game. But what really makes it interesting, because if that's all there was, I'd be bored by now. I still like killing millions of monsters, and the fascinating thing is the way you gear up your character and the character type you choose, which is highly customizable. Although it fascinates me that there's a large number of young men choose women as their character, wearing very little gear, which is
Well, as many of my fellow game makers would would say a little off color, but if you're going to stare at the butt of a character, for that many hours, they want it to be,
Yeah.
something that's
Well,
attractive.
and honestly, they're a lot more hormonal than I am at that age, right? So, but the fascinating thing is once you get the character and once you gear them up in a certain way and figure out your build, how they behave is very colorfully different all the time, so that the effects are different and you sort of get caught into the effects of it. But the key is the season, right? It's the season. And most of the time, the season is a season. It's a new campaign, a new story. And then every now and then there's a, DLC where it's a new story and a lot of new game mechanics, right? But the key is that while the theme of the game is the main campaign story, the seasonal story is always an offshoot of the main campaign story. So just one last example before we get on to like what you're thinking on your first one. The 13th, I think it was this season or the last season, maybe. It was the last season, I think. 12th season, I think. Lilith, who was your big enemy. No, I guess it was this season. It was this season. Lilith, who's your big enemy, and this is a season with a lot of new game mechanics, becomes kind of your guide. And there are times where the character of Lilith, who's a mother, is basically, you've got her blood in you as the main season, it's the main story character. The character so you're her son, at least as far as she's concerned, the character. And you carry out a significant part of the journey with Lilith. And there are times when you feel sorry for this, archdevil. I mean, she's a horrible, evil, mythical creature, but she's also the mother part comes out in this, and you literally feel like, oh no, when something bad happens to her as she's guiding you on the journey, and her motherly instincts are showing, and so on. It's really fascinating. And each of those is a unique storyline associated with the main storyline as an offshoot. Like all of a sudden, the big enemy this time is Mephisto, who, everyone's been waiting for him anyway. So the experienced players. So that carries me on this. It's the otherwise I'd just be bored as soon as I reached level. I leveled all the way up, which doesn't take long if you know what you're doing. But the story.
So that's interesting. So you, because obviously, like you said, there's that core loop of, you kill things to get more gear so you can kill more powerful things, and your character's getting stronger and more, you're designing the build, like you said, with math. But so that there's some kind of motivation, to get stronger and build a better character. But you personally, it sounds like, are also motivated by kind of the progressing the story associated
absolutely, because you get to end game, which is level 70. Pretty much you have to complete the story, and then they have seasonal rewards you get for accomplishing certain things.
Yeah.
And once you complete those two, there's really not much left to do. So then it's all end game stuff, which is routine. And that's when, even though you still gear up, because at that point you're starting to look for, how do I just make my gear better? How do I make my DPS way higher? Like the character I have now, which is a whirlwind barbarian pit freeze guy, who's Rob 2628's build that I've tweaked. I've gotten it up to the high trillions in DPS. Yeah, but he gets it into like quintillions, right? I'm not him. He makes a living doing this. Clearly, I do not.
Yeah.
But it's the best character I've ever done, and it's also one I've had the most fun with. So it keeps me in endgame just because But my goal at that point is more just seeing how much DPS I can get, and can I defeat Mephisto on Torment level 12. Which I haven't done yet. I will do that before June 30th, which is the end of the season. I could do it now, really, but I'm looking for one piece of gear, and that's it. So then it's just kind of a hunt, and it's not, but at a certain point, you just get tired of doing it, but while the storyline's there, it's really engaging. What about yours? So what's your first?
Um, so I guess so. Maybe I'll start with a more modern game, not so new, but more modern than the ancient past, and then we can go like archaeologists. We can go backwards. So for me, one that really stands out is a game called BioShock. I don't know if you've heard of this
I
franchise
tried
at
playing it
all.
and failed at it miserably.
Okay, interesting. So there's been a few of them now, and they're all pretty exceptional. But the first one, number one, like I'm kind of a dabbler when it comes to games. I'm not usually what they would call a completionist. You know, a
Right.
completionist gets to the end and wants to collect every achievement and accolade. And I'm a little bit more of the sampler platter where I usually try it. I'm like, okay, I got it. I'm on to the next one. However, BioShock was different, primarily because it is, it's a campaign story-based game. First of all, it's not one that you could play forever, like a Diablo or like a Fortnite, or it's not that sort of thing. You buy it, you play it. I really did want to get to the end, and I think what made it so compelling was, sometimes when it comes to games, we talk about showing, not telling. There's one form of telling the story. Let's take the extreme, kind of boring example where back in the day, you would just get a wall of text and you're just reading.
Right.
Today, maybe a better version of that is the cinematic cutscene where,
Right.
okay, at least you're seeing some animation, and some people are into that, but you're not actually playing it. You're
Right.
not interacting, and that happens from time to time. What was so great about BioShock was the story was just completely told through the actual environment design. It was very clear that the environment had history and had a world. The details of the aesthetics of the environment, it really came across. They did also have a device, which is kind of common in games. It's nothing that revolutionary, where you find these equivalent of audio tapes where you're hearing characters, but it was particularly well done. So you're seeing this environment, which right from the beginning, you're like, this is like, it's cohesive. There's clearly a world. It's kind of like a world I'm familiar with, but it's kind of different. And then you're discovering these tapes that allow you to piece together, the history of this world and the conflict of this world. It also, in my view, had great, what we call mechanics, the actual verbs of the game, what you do, and it had some good twists throughout. So that is probably, it's one of my favorite games to play, and in terms of just the craft of putting it together, and particularly the way it told its story really appealed to me. So that's probably my number one.
I get that. Well, that's kind of the, you tend to get immersed in that, right? And that's the other side. And I, interestingly enough, I mean, I know there are different ways to be immersed in games, and yours is, is obviously it's a highly participatory world where at the same time things out of your control will happen that surprise you, and you have to somehow figure out how to respond, which is kind of like actual human life, right? It's just, even though it's
Yep.
Somewhat obviously not exactly the same, given I was probably killed in BioShock within 5 minutes. I wasn't very good at it.
Well, you do have to aim. I mean, if you it is one of these, it had a combination of magic-like abilities with guns, with special powers, but
yes,
it is a first-person, kind of experience.
Yeah, I'm better with the third-person kind of experience, I think, than first.
Yeah.
I'm pretty poor at first. Well, but see, now I'm going to do both both in the interest of time, but also our guest isn't here yet, so we still have time. But
okay, cool.
But I'll do both together. Okay.
Okay, great.
Which is really interesting. Okay, so, and if these are two very different games that have extremely long histories, One is Civilization, which of course everyone knows. And
Mhm.
I literally played
Yeah.
Civilization 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 with all DLC associated with it.
Mm.
Right. And here's the deal. I mean, the other game, so it's very similar in why I do it, is called every single sports game from Action PC Sports. And that's by DK Sports. It's an indie developer by the name of Dave Koch. He's been doing it since the 90s on DOS, and I've been buying it from him since the 90s on DOS. Right
Mm.
now, these games are more simulation and reproduction. So, for example, every single um, MLB and Negro League baseball season ever, NHL ever, NBA season ever, and NFL season ever. He has seasons that reproduce every team, every player, those seasons, and their performance to a degree of accuracy. Like all things, there's always the outlying things that happen. So that, let's say Mickey Mantle batted 300, hit 40 homers. He never did this exactly, but 340 homers and had 100 RBIs. In a normal season with that, he might hit 332, hit 37 homers, and drive in 104 runs. He might have an outlier season, though, where he's batting 234. You don't know, right? But generally, you're managing it to the specific team and time, and you play with our AI against every other team in the league, and you can reproduce an entire season. The thing that characterizes both games is you control the building, right? You don't control the team, right? You control, you don't, let me rephrase it. You don't control the season. You don't control the outcomes, but you can manage all the players. And you can literally, you create the lineups, you look at who's pitching against who, and there's a lot of highly detailed stats involved. So, and you can literally use like Baseball Reference, Baseball Savant, and look at those if you want to literally start thinking through how to manage all that. I don't go that far, but I've been playing this game since the 90s. I buy every season. I buy every game every year he puts out, no matter how little he does for it. Partly because he's an indie, and partly because I think his games are absolutely astonishing, and partly because that way, okay, the Yankees came in second this year. Let me see if I can guide them into the series, right? Things like that. Civilization is equivalent of the same thing. I pick my leader. I pick some characteristics of that leader. I pick I choose the science. I choose the culture. I choose the things along the path, and I city build, right? And I decide how much military I want. I decide how much land I want to explore. Ultimately, I am building, right? And both of these things are immersive, but they're basically, in their own weird way, I'd call Civilization's kind of a god game, and Action PC Sports is a demigod game, right? Meaning you're a manager, you're not but but I also play out of the park baseball, which is super popular with MLB license, and there I can be commissioner, I can be owner, I can be everything, and I can have every season. It's a fantastic game too, and even more detailed than Action PC Sports, and that's brand new.
I'm getting a good view into your psychology.
Yeah, no, that's
what's interesting is that I know you, and you're so human focused, and I would say you're kind of like a soft and fuzzy sort of guy, and yet there's this analytical side, because in your games you choose these resource management, very strategic, managing, having to make hard choices. So yeah, it's good combo you got there.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, you're nailing it. I'm not a control freak except for myself, right? That's pretty much it.
Yeah, well, it's nice to be a control freak in these games because, like you said, you're a god, you're a demigod.
Well, effectively I am, and I get to do things that create alternate worlds, which is also why I love alternate world sci-fi. Always have my whole life.
Okay,
right?
those are good ones. I like
so
all of those.
How about your final two?
Okay,
our guest is in the green room.
Oh, he's in the green room. All right. Well,
That's
I'll
all right.
go quick.
He's early in. He's early.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm gonna pick some different ones just to explore some different area, and I'm gonna go with some older school ones. So I'm gonna start with what was one of my very first games that I played after Pong, after Space Invaders, or maybe around the same time. And maybe you played some of these text-based adventure games. Did you play Zork and the Infocom games?
Yeah, I played Zork for a short while, actually.
Okay, all right. So I completed Zork also. So I'm gonna go with Zork as number one, or Microsoft Adventure. They were basically the same game. The reason is I think it just shows how much of the fun ultimately lives in the player's head.
Yes.
You know, what was amazing for Zork, very rudimentary, you know, go north, look north, you know, open door, the, you know, 2-word commands, little bit of text back. But to me, at that time, you know, keeping the map on my piece of paper and trying to figure out this world, it was still just as immersive to me, differently than BioShock with its beautiful graphics decades later. And I like it because it just shows the game designer ultimately, you know, it all happens in the player's heads, whatever the tool is. So that was my number one. And then kind of differently, we talked about it earlier, but I'll hit Minecraft, because what was great about Minecraft is it's one of the first games I played with my son. We played it early before there was so much hype around it. You know, there's no story, but there is a cohesive world there. And we would make our own stories and talk about them after. I mean, just because of just what happened. Like, it's not like we were making it up. It was just like, oh, remember when we first got in there and we had to find a little hidey hole and the creeper was coming for us. And then we found that one location. And so I like that because it's the stories between people that emerge from the game. And part of that probably informs my love of esports today, because it's like the players are making the story and the game is the ingredient. And so Minecraft, you know, continues to do that really, really well.
You know, I think all in all, to wrap it up, I think, you know, like all in all, these things just deeply engage your imagination, and they do a really good job of it too. It's like you get immersed in those worlds, even though you know you're not in those worlds. I remember many years ago, I was at Universal Studios, and they had the Back to the Future ride back then. This was a long time ago. And you basically sat in this half car, and it was a stationary thing that had some mechanical stuff going on underneath it. And then they would throw a kind of IMAX level, you know, thing going on screen, like diving into the mouth of a dinosaur and things like that. And the thing would shake and move like that, you know, from the mechanics stuff going on underneath. And you literally felt like you were diving into the mouth of a dinosaur, and you knew you weren't, but you couldn't get out of it. And no matter what you did, you literally felt it anyway. And I would do things like try to break off the sides, you know, like try to see the sides, just anything to break the state, and I couldn't do it. And that's, I don't want to say the games go quite that far, but that's kind of where they start going, right? And that's what makes them, and every individual is going to, of course, have different reasons for their different games. I mean, you know, Minecraft and Zork and BioShock for you, and for me, you know, action PC sports and Civilization, and of course Diablo 4, which I'm still obsessed with. So anyway, I love this, man. We got to do this like once every few months, just talk about the games we're dealing with.
I love it.
In the meantime, our guest is here, so shall we get over to Studio B?
Yeah, I will meet you in Studio B.
I'll see you in about 2.5 hours while we take Ubers.
Okay.
I'm out of breath. I couldn't get an Uber.
Yeah, that was tough. But it is better here, better
Yeah.
climate, better
Yeah, it's much.
lighting.
Yeah, that's what I think too. So let me just, before we bring him on, let me say something about this guy. I've only known him a few years. I've known his partner and friend, Alan Berkson, for many, many years, and met our guest, Jeff Gomez, through that. But I will tell you, this is genuinely a notable person, right? A truly notable person. He's I have questions I need to ask him, like I was telling you in the beginning of the show, but I want to give it away because he can hear us. But he's not only the founder and CEO of Starlight Runner Entertainment, he is the man that if you've watched Disney, if you've watched Marvel, if you watch probably DC, if you watch anything that has a universe associated with it in any way of an ongoing nature, like you watch, let's say, I'm just picking things I've had. I don't even know if he was responsible for these particularly. You watch Green Arrow or Arrow, excuse me, and you watch Flash, and then you watch the Cross episodes, things like that. One way or the other, this guy's responsible for that. When he's the inventor of worlds, the creator of universes, basically. So let's bring in our guest, who's also a really awesome person, Jeff Gomez.
Let's bring on Jeff.
How you doing, sir?
Hey. Well, that was a pretty insane introduction. So thanks.
Yeah, I kind of expect you to just conjure a universe in front of us now.
So,
good to see you, Jeff.
How you doing?
Doing okay. Doing great. So glad to be on Game On. That's awesome.
Look, honestly, I love doing the show with Todd. I really do. I just love it. And I'm doing a lot of shows.
It's in evidence as I've been watching the two of you.
Yeah, it's just amazing. So, hey, Jeff, I keep wanting to ask you this question. I keep forgetting to ask you when I see you, so I'm going to ask you now. I know you have deep involvement in the multiverse, but are you the creator of the multiverse? No, I mean the actual, at least the idea of the multiverse. Okay.
Well, no, it goes back. You'd be surprised at the capabilities of science fiction creators and comic book creators and so forth. The concept of multiverse goes back really quite far. I think it manifested in what we would call contemporary popular culture when DC Comics was trying to account for the disparity between two very large groups of superheroes, some kind of dated during World War II and others dated in the 50s and 60s. And they needed to kind of combine them into the same overall continuity. So there became Earth 1 and Earth 2. And that began to proliferate as the multiverse. I certainly, helped to kind of cultivate this notion of transmedia universes where story worlds extended themselves across multiple media platforms and became these rich, complex environments that we could all immerse ourselves in. That I had a little more to do with.
So can you dig a little deeper on that? Because look, I'm fascinated by that, and then when we get a chance, we can talk about what you've done with, Halo and some of the gaming worlds too. But right now, can you talk about, because the way what you just said adds dimensions to the multiverse, so to speak, which is kind of a hard thing to do, actually.
Look. Some of us, even on this podcast, were nerds growing up, and for me, there was this true desire for to make it elegant, to make the universe make sense to my young brain, and when I would enjoy pop culture content that appeared as a cartoon series or a novelization or a feature film, and there were discontinuities between them. In some cases, the creator would just make stuff up, dinosaurs on the planet of the apes. um, it would aggravate me. So I became interested in canon, in this notion that if we maintain the integrity of our story world,
Yes.
that fans would appreciate that more. There would be more fidelity, and so when I started working on these story worlds in comic books and video games, I thought about that and integrated that kind of level of seriousness to the properties, and that's where my concept of transmedia storytelling came from. This notion that you're not repeating the same story or silly variations on the same story on multiple media platforms, but that there was one story world which manifested in different ways across different media.
So theoretically, let's say the universe would be sustainably coherent through it could be text, it could be a video, it could be audio, it could be in a theme park, it could be, meaning, of course, it was fictional. It could be, it could be on television, it could be on a streaming service, it could be on some other media I'm not thinking of at the moment. But one way or the other, this is sustainable coherence.
It's funny because coherence is something that you're hearing out of the artificial intelligence community a whole lot lately.
Yeah.
And yet coherence is something that was always precious to me, dating back to the 80s and 90s. And this doesn't just operate with fictional, Star Wars like universes. That's great. Being able to read a comic book that is in continuity with a movie or a Disney Plus TV show is kind of awesome. But big brands want coherence. They want their narratives to flow across different media in elegant ways. And that made my company valuable, not just to the Disneys and Sony Pictures and Microsoft with Halo. It made us valuable to Coca-Cola, to Pepperidge Farm, and other kinds of big brands that needed coherence as the content extended across these different media.
All right, Jeff, I've got a deep question for you, mostly because I just want to know your answer. So like you, I kind of have this desire for coherence and canon and integrity. And then at the same time, things like the multiverse kind of give you a still coherent way to tell a very different story. You can have Bizarro, Superman, or you can have, Spider-Man, this in the multiverse, right? And so you get variety. And now with AI, people don't even know what is true. My deep question is, let's say, look ahead like 3 years from now. Do you think when it comes to entertainment, culturally, people will want more kind of coherence, cohesion, like here's the way it works? Or will they have more of a taste for variety? You know what I mean? Like 12 versions of Star Wars, and this one Luke Skywalker does this, and I don't know. Do you have a strong point of view on where?
I've given a lot of thought to this. A lot of thought.
Okay, beautiful.
So here's where a lot of big franchises sometimes get themselves into trouble. There is a temptation, because something's working in terms of theme, the creators want to kind of milk it, and so they create variation. So it's theme and variation, and variation means sometimes multiple iterations of the same characters with slight variations and so forth. Sometimes that is that can manifest in some really interesting kinds of projects. But when you dwell on it too much, you are going to start fracturing audience attention. You know, which Batman is the Batman in the current movies? Does he know the Superman in the current movies? Actually, he does not. They exist in separate universes, but the audience doesn't really know or understand that, which creates a point of conflict. That's a tiny schism that already exists in a brand new rebooted version of the DC cinematic universe by James Gunn. Now there's also cartoons of Batman from different universes and so forth. And so now it becomes a wider and wider schism. So I don't necessarily advocate for too much multiverse shenanigans. I think people want to and appreciate the elegance of a singular story world.
So let me ask you this: given the current release of the movie Supergirl, that's a different Supergirl than I grew up with. Let's just say I grew up with the comic book version, and Crypto was there, and the dog, and even that's a different Crypto than I'm used to. Now I haven't seen the movie. I kind of like the trailers I've seen just because I think they're kind of funny in their own odd way. But so even if, let's say, in general, the concept is the same, Supergirl from Krypton, cousin of Superman, Crypto the dog, the personalities are very different. I'm not talking about like the extreme things where they kill off Superman. Like,
no, I understand.
I find those actually obnoxious. But unless you literally are sunsetting a character for good and just get rid of them, period. But these are just personality differences. How do they play in this? I mean, what do they do?
Sure. Well, if you're constructing a kind of rebooted universe, and you have this Superman character who stands for truth, justice, and humanity, so to say, and he's this noble and good character, and you're going to follow that up with Supergirl. You need to make sure that Supergirl calls into question certain things about Superman. Why are we already duplicating, this similar set of powers, similar kind of goody two-shoe attitude, and so forth? That's redundant. You might as well just make Superman Part 2. So I think James wisely is commenting on Superman with the Supergirl character, who is a very, very different character. And if he does that well, then it's a trip worth taking. But I'd also like him to kind of spread out and start, building up the rest of the architecture of his new universe.
Okay, one final question exploring this, and then I'll leave.
Sure.
I'll let Todd get back into it. But you go one generation previously on the Supergirl, and that was I forget the actress's name, but it was a TV show that had what was her name from Ally McBeal as the newspaper magnate, right? So that Supergirl was sweet and kind and everything else, but what they did that was different was, and they changed the characters around, like Jimmy Olsen became a black football player, basically, who had powers of his own, and then they had the whole equivalent of, what was the name of the secret organization that had Supergirl's sister in it, and so on. So what they did was they kind of kept the archetype from the comic to some degree, made it contemporized, made it contemporary, but they changed the universe around it quite a bit.
Sure.
Is that a valid way of doing that, and at the same time kind of maintaining the character, or is that like a half step, or is that like, it wasn't the right thing to do? I mean, the show lasted for
that's right
successfully.
It is certainly valid if you want to fill about 22 episodes a year for 7 years.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I watched it. I liked it. I watched it every episode.
Sure. It was fun. although I think you outlasted me on that front, so you win the nerd award now. Um, but yeah, I mean, look, that whole CW Arrowverse was I thought it was quite an incredible achievement.
Me too.
You know, at relatively modest budgets, the ability to maintain, you know, our kind of nerd attention for as long as they did, and to create such variety and such you know, a contiguous universe, I thought was a pretty cool accomplishment, you know. But ultimately, you know, feature films are where it's at, isn't it?
Well, for me, no, but yes. I just assume watch the TV series.
Sure.
And video games. So maybe I'll take it to games a little bit, Jeff. If you heard when you were in the green room, Paul and I were just picking a few games that were at least personally notable to us in terms of story. You know, when I think about your work, I think you're creating worlds, but you're also, I think, have frameworks and architectures for like the right way to make worlds that will last decades. So I guess what maybe is a notable game franchise to you? It could be one you personally contributed to, or just one that is notable in terms of its story architecture, I guess, narrative architecture.
Well, I worked on Halo, and that was an amazing experience. And the real challenge there was that the 3 Halo games had been done already, and the intellectual property was in the process of being handed over from Bungie, the originators of Halo, to Microsoft, 343 Studios. And that was, you know, not going to be an easy transition. You know, it's sort of like a group of guys were giving up their child, you know, and they weren't all that happy about it, you know, and so my job was to demonstrate to them, because they had certain commitments, Bungie, to completing their work with Microsoft and perpetuating the brand, and at the same time to convey to the Microsoft teams, you know, what made Halo so special, and what they need to kind of continue thinking about when it comes to Master Chief and this kind of a hyper conflict, this cosmology that had been built with the Halo rings and the ancient history of the civilization and so forth. So that meant truly delving deeply into the narrative, into the backstory, into all the notes that had accumulated over the years at Bungie, and convincing them that we were trustworthy enough to be able to look at that stuff and help to preserve it, because that was the promise that we made to Bungie. You know, cooperate with us, and we will do our very best to maintain Master Chief's integrity and the integrity of the creation that you put together. That's what the fans love, and that's what ought to be carried forward. And from there, architecting a kind of 10-year strategy for the franchise in a transmedial way was something that we helped to do, and that was a 2,000-page document.
Oh my God,
which was awesome.
That's a big document.
We needed to document everything that had ever been canonized in the Halo universe, and that was a significant amount.
So I got 2 questions related to that. First question is, did that require you to play the games themselves? You, not necessarily your team. And then secondly, where were like the most outlying sources of the information you got? Like, obviously there's a lot that's right there, but you had to obviously to produce the complete canon of Halo universe, the Halo universe. There were places you had to go that other people probably wouldn't even thought to look. So my question is, 1, play the games? Yes, no? And 2, where were those places that no one else would have thought to look.
I had played the three games as a fan, as somebody who just played video games. I am not the greatest gamer because I get caught up in the details. I go chasing lore and things like that, and killing is not generally my first instinct,
Right.
even in a video game.
Sandbox universe.
Exactly. But this is a kind of, to me, the magic of what it is that we do at Starlight Runner. We look at these universes as epics, and that is in the classic poetic sense. When you have reached the prominence of Halo, what you're really doing is you're creating a national kind of narrative where thousands and millions of people have participated in the experience of that narrative. So we have to ask ourselves, what is this narrative really communicating? Because when you look at the Odyssey and Beowulf and these ancient epics, Gilgamesh, they actually had something to say about where their nations were, where their civilizations were at the time. What is the timing of Halo? Well, what's Halo about? Halo is about this kind of Western a democracy that is confronted with religious extremism, and something terrible happens. Reach is destroyed. A whole planet is glassed by these religious extremists. Halo came out in what, 2002, 2003? There was something that needed to be said on an epic scale. So what is Master Chief? He is this manifestation of this kind of American sensibility at its ideal, with this little kind of feminine conscience. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. And so what we posited to everyone involved is, what is Master Chief? What is Halo? In Halo, the greatest warrior is the warrior who ends war. And when you step back far enough and look at this 10-year plan, or look at this 20 or 30 or 50-year plan, ideally, Master Chief must become responsible, or his people, his legacy must become responsible for ending conflict and unifying this galaxy. And everybody loved that, and it became the heart and soul of Halo for 10 years.
Well, the other thing I noticed about Master Chief in the course of the game, and also to a much lesser extent, because I didn't think it was quite as good, the two seasons of the TV series.
Yeah.
His awareness was evolutionary and increasing in increments of his actual destiny and responsibility. And the things that triggered it made it really interesting, because, it would be that little girl, or, things like one thing or another. But the one thing I noticed, because I'm like you, I'm sort of aware of coherence, is there was always a frame, and it was always filling out the pieces of the frame, but the frame was always there, right? Gotcha. And so that it was not an incoherent, this one, and then this one, and then that one. Piece. There was a narrative thread of the evolution of his consciousness into what he became, and you kind of rode with it, right? Is what it was.
Yes. And that's narrative design, which is something that actually kind of originated in interactive gaming. Because these are worlds, and so you need to design them in such a way that you can experience them to the best advantage. And that includes piecing together these kinds of puzzles.
Yeah, well, it's kind of the what if, I mean, like, what if, I want that, I want to be that, right? That's something I can't actually do it, but I wish I could, right? And I want to be, and here's a character doing it.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Jeff, I was going to ask, because, some of what Paul and I touch on are like lessons from gaming that can be applied to business or the B2B world, or, his world of CRM. What do you think when it comes to narrative design? Is there anything that you think because I think you work with some corporate clients as well as entertainment clients. What are one or two things that those in the business to business world should be doing, when it comes to narrative design or emotional attachment?
I've been working a lot lately with a concept called the mythic field.
Yep, I
The
read your
mythic
stuff.
field. Every organization, every brand, every game and story world possesses a deeper point of view. This is the perspective of the originating artist, the visionaries behind what it is. It could be the intent and vision of the founder of the company or the creator of the product. So beneath these products and characters and experiences, there lie a kind of set of assumptions about things like belonging, success, purpose, responsibility, what we desire, our deepest aspirations.
Yep.
This is contained within something that I call the mythic field. It's a it's a value system and an identity that a world represents, not because of its individual features, but because of the fundamental intent behind its communication. So while the surface of these brands and movies and games attract attention, the mythic field sustains engagement, because what it's doing is it's making our hearts sing. It makes us desire to return to it over and over again because we empathize. There's something about it that lifts us. Do you see what I'm saying? So what I get out of my love for science fiction and fantasy and gaming is the fact that I love it and need to identify what that is. My job is to identify what that is. What's the secret? What are the ingredients in the special sauce, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that the stakeholders can be made to understand what it is, so that we can avoid drifting away from it, which happens and has happened. You've seen with these huge franchises of late, right? We're starting to, wait a minute, this isn't exactly what I signed up for. It looks like it, it kind of tastes like it, but there's something missing. That's what this is. So when organizations understand their mythic field, they're able to create stronger emotional connections, and the community remains more resilient.
In the B2B world, the manifestation of when that fails is customers thinking, wait a minute, why are they doing that? And then they think, oh God, they're going to abandon me. Right. And I've seen that directly. In fact, we don't have time now, but look into a company on the good side of this called Pegasystems. And their corporate narrative, it's for me the gold standard of corporate narratives they've been around since '84. Right. And their corporate narrative has been absolutely rock solidly, evolutionarily in line, in sync, and let's say this, their churn rates about 1%, maybe 2%, right? So and it's because their corporate narrative is so utterly coherent, consistent, and evolutionary. Perfect. Sometime I'll tell you the details of it all.
Yeah, I'd like to check that out.
It's very interesting. I'll introduce you to it.
It's always good to point to who's doing it well.
Oh, they are gold. They are gold standard, man.
That's a really good framework, and clearly we see it, across entertainment, and the somewhat of the challenge, I guess, of you have your core fans, particularly if maybe you're a more niche property and you're trying to maybe expand your audience, but not alienate the core, not be something that you were not alienate the people that came for something. So yeah, I think it's a super interesting framework, really valuable, especially as tools allow democratization of content or AI or this fracturing. So
AI and how important this aspect will be to AI, because the only way to sustain this type of intimacy and connection at scale, because AI listens to you and therefore can have meaningful interactions with people, is if we move our artistic expression, our authorship, a tiny bit upstream to make sure that everything that goes downstream is informed and immersed in this mythic field, in these fundamental value systems that then manifest in engagements with thousands or millions of people at a time. It's the only way to ensure that those engagements are meaningful and adhere to strict guidelines and to make sure that they're authentic to our initial communication. That's technology that is still in the process of being developed.
So, Jeff, one final thing before we go. How do people get a hold of you, and how do they get a hold of yours and Alan's book?
Oh, thanks for the plug. The 10 Commandments of Successful Corporate Narratives is available through Amazon, both in EPUB and hard copy.
Highly recommended.
Well, somebody wrote an introduction to it.
I don't know who that is,
Paul.
I don't know who that is.
So thank you.
I recommend the content, not the introduction.
No, it's Alan and I. Alan did a great job steering me toward this non-nerd environment in corporate narrative. So I thank you, Alan. And of course, you could reach both me and Alan through LinkedIn. I'm at Jeff Gomez. Alan is at Alan Berkson.
Thank you, sir. As always, it has been an absolute pleasure. I hope, if you are willing, I know Todd and I will be there, but I hope if you're willing, I will see you at IRL 2027, which will be the last week of February in Atlanta at Atlanta Tech Village. We're still working on final details.
I always love to go there and tell people something brand new because it's safe to fail in front of Paul Greengrass.
Yeah. You won't, but you don't fail. The good news
forward
is
to seeing you there, Jeff. It's great to see you again.
A real pleasure, sir. We will see you soon.
Mr. Greenberg,
all right.
Mr. Harris,
thank you
so much.
Good to see you.
Bye.
I think we could have gone a while on that.
Yeah,
topic.
I think so.
Great stuff. So.
I love him, man. I just do. I just love him. Minds like that are wonderful, and he's just such a good person besides. So anyway, I guess got a whole month to wait next time. So what would it be? Whatever that week in July is, right? The what are we, the third week, right?
Yeah,
the third Tuesday at
It'll
2
be
p.m. ET. So whatever that is in July, that's when we'll see you next.
It'll be hot and sticky in Atlanta, but it'll be nice and cool in our studio, listeners and viewers. So join us for another episode.
And I guess we'll see you then.
That was Game On.
This has been a Players Productions Network digital broadcast.